Weekly column. The Celestial Blueprint for Global Trade and Political Upheaval Review. Jackson Hole, YO. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell opened the door for the central bank to cut rates as soon as its meeting next month, when he said the prospect of a sharper slowdown in the job market might reduce concerns that cost increases due to tariffs will fuel inflation. By Nick Timiraos. Powell highlights job market worries, opening path to rate cut. The Wall Street Journal, August 22, 2025. The markets got the much-anticipated boost with the green light from the Fed chair for rate cuts as early as next month. Given the rally that pursued, it was clear that the markets were certainly not pricing in this decision. The U.S. markets reversed the weekly downward trend, sending the DJIA to a new ATH, whilst the SP 500 and Nasdaq were not able to take out their respective highs from the prior week, retaining the bearish intermarket divergence. We are seeing the theme of bearish intermarket divergence in other markets too. In Europe, the UK's FTSE is putting in new ATHs, whilst the German DAX, Swiss SMI, and the Euro Stoxx 50 and have failed to take out prior highs. A similar picture is present in Asia, with Japan's Nikkei, the Australian Stock Index, ASX 200, and China's Shanghai Composite Index, SSE, recording new ATHs, whilst China's Hang Seng and the Hong Kong 50 remain below last week's high. India's Nifty continues to remain as the underperformer, as it fails to take out the ATH of September 2024 and is forming lower highs under the pressure of US tariffs on Indian goods that will fall into effect August 27th. The markets in the Americas are not doing well either, with Argentina's Merval continuing within a bearish pattern following a liquidity. https://street.com/cryptocurrencies. Crunch under tight monetary policy and political uncertainty. Brazil's Bovespa index has not been able to take out the ATH of July following the 50% tariffs imposed by President Trump. Commodities were in the green following the news. https://fxstreet.com/news of potential easing from the Fed, but the real winner was the crypto market, as tipped off by our resident analyst, Derek Panaya, during this week's MMA YouTube interview with Gianni DiPoci. Derek discussed the setup for a rally in the crypto market, which has sent BTC rallying over 4% and ETH over 15% on Friday. With the dollar continuing to consolidate around its lows, it has kept precious metals consolidating around their respective highs. We are in the early stages of a primary cycle, and the geocosmics remain tense all the way into 2026. The grains look like they have formed their primary cycles too, with soybeans bringing the week to a close, having hit Wyatt Fellowes' price target in the weekly report. Short-term geocosmics. At the start of the century, America accounted for a fifth of global imports. Today, it makes up just an eighth. Even as countries strike tariff deals with Mr. Trump to secure market access, they are drawing up alternatives. As one South Korean official puts it, the first step is to make concessions to America. The second is to look elsewhere. Mr. Trump wanted America at the center of world trade. Things are not going to plan. Hedging against America. Trump's trade victims are shrugging off his attacks, and China is gaining in the process. Economist, August 20, 2025. It would appear that the US tariffs are having a side effect of boosting trade between the BRIC members: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. China stands to be the biggest winner, with its exports to the BRIC members doubling since 2015. Who will be the true winner of this trade war, and who will bear the price? How do empires begin to falter? History has shown us that there is a pattern. It is commonly accompanied by rising debt, inflation, and trade imbalances that weaken resilience. Overextension, as maintaining vast military, political, and economic dominance, strains resources. Erosion of economic primacy as rivals catch up technologically. Domestic instability, characterized by political polarization. This is usually followed by trade disruptions and warfare, as one empire is replaced by another. As we head towards the end of the 18-year economic cycle, President Trump's current term may be recorded in the annals of history. Whilst Powell appears to have yielded to pressure from the White House to lower rates, is it possible that he may be underestimating the impact of the tariffs on inflation? Our geocosmic studies show a correlation. For a more in-depth analysis, I would encourage you to read the monthly MMA Monthly Cycles Plus report, which will be coming out on Tuesday. We are currently in orb of the August 25 to 26 CRD, and we're looking for sharp reversals. The Sun is in waxing square to Uranus this weekend, and Uranus is the ruling planet over tech stocks and the crypto market. With Uranus activated, I would like to see the Nasdaq and SP 500 to break out to new ATHs. Over the coming week, Venus, the ruling planet over money and the markets, will enter Leo, forming a harmonic trine to Saturn and Neptune on the 25 to 26, before the more abrupt opposition to Pluto on August 27th. Longer-term thoughts and opinion. This week, I had the privilege of working with Ray on the 2026 forecast. https://fxstreet.com/forecast book, due for release in December. When I first studied astrology, my teacher stressed the importance of reviewing past forecasts to refine one's skills. With that in mind, I'd like to revisit Ray's analysis of the summer 2025 ingress chart, both to showcase the work of a master astrologer and to introduce a new feature I plan to add to this section of the book: the use of astrocartography maps to show which regions are most likely to be activated by the planetary energies at play. Source: Solar Fire. Before we get into the details, remember that the most important outer planetary aspect that is active this summer is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is within 1 degree of being exact. When analyzing solar ingress charts, we also pay close attention to the Sun. Now, let's have a look at what Ray thought would transpire during this period. As spring comes to an end, new conflicts may arise that test the wish for stability and peace suggested by the sign placements of Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. June 13, Israel launched a surprise attack on Tehran. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction fell directly on Tehran's midheaven, underscoring the event. At the same time, Iran is enduring a record-hot dry summer with drought driving water reserves to historic lows. Israel also had the Sun-Jupiter conjunction on its ascendant. It appears that the leader of the nation is having a good time. Much celebration and partying is in the air. There may be big plans for large and grandiose summit meetings too. The emphasis is on goodwill, mutual enjoyment, entertainment, education, creativity, and young people. August 15. The Alaska summit occurred in close orb to the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. August 12. A classic signature of peace and unity. Notably, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction fell on Anchorage's IC, Venus peace on the descendant, and Mars war, firmly at center stage on the midheaven during the summer solar ingress. Following the summit, Trump went on to host European leaders at the White House on August 18th with the hope, Jupiter, of achieving peace, Venus. With Saturn-Neptune squaring the Sun-Jupiter, there may be a conflict about restrictions wanting to be imposed and limitations to freedoms via new acts that legislators enacted into laws. The National Guard was deployed in Los Angeles, June, and Washington, D.C., August. Over the summer, ICE agents, Saturn, intensified enforcement against unauthorized, and in some cases, legally present immigrants, Jupiter, operating with notable force and impunity. Los Angeles had the Sun conjunct Jupiter on the descendant, and Washington, D.C. had Pluto on the ascendant. The dangers represented by technology are also shown in the position of Pluto, rising on the ascendant in Aquarius. Here, we see the symbolism of threats to life through technology being used as a weapon for destructive purposes. It can also be a threat as a nuclear attack. June 22nd, the U.S. deployed 7 B-2 bombers against 3 Iranian nuclear sites, including one deep underground, in an operation named Midnight Hammer. Astrologically, Washington had Uranus, bunker-busting technology, on the IC, Midnight, while Pluto rested on the ascendant, reflecting the US's transformative role in destroying Pluto, Iran's nuclear facilities, Uranus. Uranus in Taurus on the IC further echoes the imagery of uranium or nuclear facilities, Taurus as an earth sign, buried deep underground. Pluto rising in Aquarius also is squared by the moon in early Taurus. In terms of natural calamities, Pluto rising in Aquarius, square the moon, may indicate volcano eruptions, earthquakes, or some other life-threatening force of nature, such as heat and lack of moisture, where it is most needed for the crop cycle. July 30th. A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck near Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, triggering tsunami warnings for Japan, Hawaii, and the US West Coast. According to the BBC, it ranks among the strongest quakes in recorded history. Astrologically, the Sun fell on the mid-heaven and Pluto on the IC of this region during the summer ingress, drawing global attention. Japan was also hosting Expo 2025 Osaka and marking the 80th anniversary of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, attracting visitors and dignitaries. The economy received a boost, particularly after a US-Japan trade deal pushed the Nikkei to new ATHs. The rains and other natural calamities don't stop, as another bout of possible floods arises July 4 to 7, plus/minus 1 week. Jewel.org. Flash floods wreaked havoc across central Texas, New Mexico, New York, South Korea, Thailand, Nepal, Ireland, and Pakistan. I will draw this column to a close with Ray's forecast for the end of this summer period. Does it suggest President Trump may be able to broker a peace deal over the coming weeks? The summer ends with the Sun and Mercury entering Libra, partnership and relationships, while Venus, peace, enters Virgo, losing dignity in its fall, and Mars, war and aggression, enters Scorpio, gaining dignity in its own domicile, September 18th to 23rd. That's a lot of planets changing signs, which means a lot of changes of direction in politics, economics, and financial markets. The Sun will be in opposition to both Saturn and Neptune on the day of the solar eclipse, September 21st. So matters are reaching a point of climax when decisions have to be made and commitments have to be secured. This is a time that will test the power and strength of some world leaders. Disclaimer and statement of purpose. The purpose of this column is not to predict the future movement of various financial markets. However, that is the purpose of the MMA, Merriman Market Analyst, subscription services. This column is not a subscription service. It is a free service, except in those cases where a fee may be assessed to cover the cost of translating this column from English into a non-English language. This weekly report is written with the intent to educate the reader on the relationship between astrological factors and collective human activities as they are happening. In this regard, this report will oftentimes report what happened in various stock and financial markets throughout the world in the past week, and discuss that movement in light of the geocosmic signatures that were in effect. It will then identify the geocosmic factors that will be in effect in the next week, or even month, or even years, and the author's understanding of how these signatures will likely affect human activity in the times to come. The author, Merriman, will do this from a perspective of a cycles analyst, looking at the military, political, economic, and even financial markets of the world. It is possible that some forecasts will be made based on these factors. However, the primary goal is to both educate and alert the reader as to the psychological climate we are in, from an astrological perspective. The hope is that it will help the reader understand the psychological dynamics that underlie or coincide with the news events and hence financial markets of the day. No guarantee as to the accuracy of this report is being made here. Any decisions in financial markets are solely the responsibility of the reader, and neither the author nor the publishers assume any responsibility at all for those individual decisions. Readers should understand that futures and options trading are considered high risk